2014, the #1 song was Happy by Pharrell Williams, and RG3 was still playing for the Washington Redskins. Lots has changed both in Washington and on the top 100 since then, but there are players drafted in 2014 still making big gains for teams that drafted them and some that did not. We're going to take a look at the best 2014 draft classes. Now, caveat here, we're going to throw out quarterbacks because even if they're Blake Bortles, they can skew things pretty highly. And we're going to use wins above replacement, which is basically saying how much value did any player generate for their team. So, top 5 2014 draft classes. Suns quarterback, who's at the top?
You mentioned RG3, and a lot of the genesis for this, this top team stems from having multiple picks in multiple draft classes. And starting with 2014, you had Greg Robinson was the #2 overall pick that year. He was the Redskins' original pick. That was a pick that essentially was just lighting it on fire. But in their original pick with 14, they got Aaron Donald. Donald's been arguably the best player in the NFL over the past few seasons. He's been great. LaMarcus Joyner's been good as well. So the best draft class from 2014 was the then St. Louis Rams.
In fairness, fire generates heat. Greg Robinson, negative wins above replacement. In other words, he hurt the team instead of helping them. So, I don't know.
He lit a fire under the Rams to get McVay.
Don't be so mean to fire is what I'm trying to say. The Giants come in second. Odell Beckham Jr. obviously has been tremendous, even though he's missed some games and some snaps, obviously, because of injury. Over 7 wins above replacement. And then the Bucks also hitting on a wide receiver with Mike Evans. It's been fantastic. And Allen Robinson with the Jags led that draft class as well. Other team on this list has a player that was tremendous for them and is no longer playing for them.
Yeah, Khalil Mack over 5 wins above replacement. It would have been more had he played this last season with the Raiders. They did get a nice, basically collection of draft picks for him this year. And then they had some sub players, TJ Carey, Gabe Jackson, Justin Ellis that did well as well. No draft picks for the Raiders that year were below replacement level, and that's probably why you saw them come up a little bit in 2016. Hasn't really been sustainable for them, but a pretty good draft class for the 2014 Raiders.
Okay, if we're going to try and spin this forward, you're drafting tomorrow. What lessons can you learn from 2014 that you would apply drafting now?
I think the passing game matters, the most, right? So you look at even like the Bucks, they drafted Charles Sims in 2014. He was a good receiver out of the backfield, generated some value for them during some of those years. Obviously, Mike Evans, Odell Beckham Jr., Allen Robinson for a couple years did really well, even with Blake Bortles as a quarterback. Telvin Smith, a good coverage player, as well as Aaron Colvin. So the passing game is really where you want to focus in terms of finding players in the draft that will elevate your team substantially in the long run.
Aaron Donald, not a bad pass rusher in his own right. I think if I were to take one thing away from this, it would be that the best draft classes are driven by one player. And it's not necessarily the player that you're taking in the top 5, right? The Rams are a great example of that. And so for me, if I'm building a draft, I just want to accumulate as many picks as possible because I just have to accept that I'm not that good at knowing whether a player is going to hit or not. No one is. It is kind of a lottery in that sense, and you just want to hold as many lotto tickets as possible. Aaron Donald, Odell Beckham Jr., Mike Evans, none of those guys drafted in the top 5, and so you don't need to have a top 5 pick. There's no need to trade up to get it. I think the quarterback might be the one exception there, but still, it's hard to make that a valuable trade. So as many lotto tickets as I can get, that's what I'm taking away.
Yeah, we see this weekend in the championship round, teams are driven by superstars, right? And you can't get superstars, generally speaking, by trying to thread the needle. Oftentimes, you have to have a lot of lottery tickets, and you said that's a good proverb, in terms of looking at past drafts, seeing where all of the value is, and moving forward with that idea.
You mean I should just try and get pick 199? Every single time?
Every single time. Yep.
All right. For more excellent analysis like that, you'll want to head to ProFootballFocus.com. PFF_Steve has a mock draft out. And if you have questions on any of what we talked about today, PFF_Eric is the guy you want to hit up. We'll see you guys later.